Mila, do you want to start?
Yes, I'm just okay. So good morning, everybody. Baruch Hashem, gonna start, and today actually we're gonna be learning about the Mashal of the river. And before we start, we would like to dedicate this class for Shleima of Rezel Baschaya and Leilu Nishmas of Shir Malka Bas Alexander Asher, and full redemption of Mazal Tov Bas Esther Istat. And interestingly, but in this last week we learned about the Toldes, and it says that when Yitzchak and Rivka were davening for children, it says that one was standing on one corner and the other one was standing on the other corner. Rashi, right? And each one were davening, and it's interesting to notice that they are davening, and the place where they choose the davening, it's in the corner. So after everything what we've learned, right? It's Rashi actually says that he started davening. They started davening after 20 years of the marriage, right? 10 years she couldn't conceive, and the other 10 years, it's still considered to be normal. And after that, when they realize that there is no yesh for them to actually have the child, what ends up happening is that they go to the corner to daven. And if we think about it, I mean, is it really where we daven? We don't daven in a corner. It's either why do we need to have that specification that they were davening by each corner? And it definitely adds a little bit different meaning, especially with what we're learning with the corner and everything what it entails. So they really needed to go to a deeper place, to the state of ayin, so they could reveal the new yesh, which was the the new babies that were brought up, right? 2 kids, 2 great nations. Which interestingly, but Rashi also explains what kinds of what? No, it could be also here, but you cannot just take it out. It's connected to. So yeah. So yeah. We're going to be B'ezrat Hashem learning the Mashal of the river, and Neria will take us to the beautiful visualization.
Okay, so I was just thinking that with the Mashalim, that we really need to visualize the Mashal itself. For many reasons, but one of them I feel is because it awakens kind of the right brain. So before we go into the text, which is a very left brain experience, I just want to ask you to take a moment and to think about when you last saw a river, because this is what we're going to be looking at. Reb Hillel Parach compares Bina to a river. So if we first need the Mashal is there to make it easier to understand Bina, because Bina is abstract, but a river is concrete. It's something we should have experienced on some level. So first of all, I want to ask you to just think about, when did you see a really wide, long river? And then just think about it and then write into the chat if maybe you've never maybe you haven't seen a river, or maybe you have. What does that river look like? Which river are you referring to? So just close your eyes and try and remember the last time you experienced a river. Okay. So Alkali is saying the Mississippi in Minnesota. Okay. That's a significant river, the Mississippi, I would imagine.
For me, it was not, I don't think it's a large river, but I was in the river because I fell from a canoe. And my life was in danger.
Wow.
Because I was all dressed, PA included. And I don't know if you want me to go on with the description, but that was the experience of the river.
Okay, good. So I just want to know that people have an experience of a river. Nechama, you have a river? Okay, I'm just going to at least share an image here of a significant river, of a wide river. Yes. So you see that the river is it's wide, it's flowing. Here's more of an aerial view, so you get a sense of the river. Okay.
I would like to share.
Okay.
We have inflatable rafts, boats, and we take the whole family in the summer on Sundays. Babies from 6 months old, because that's when the life jackets work properly. And the kids love it, and we love it. And it's cleansing to the mind and the body and purifying, and it's beautiful, beautiful to no end.
Okay, beautiful. I want to ask you something. If you're going in boats, do you feel the difference between the current on the sides of the river and the current in the middle, Zippy?
So depends. The river that we go to, there is an area that the current becomes much faster. So usually, I'll tell you, we actually get out of the rafts and we swim. Sometimes we're swimming for 3 hours at a time, and it's like being in a mikvah. It is so beautiful and stunning, and stunning to the eyes, stunning to the body. It's just Baruch Hashem beautiful. But when it gets to where it starts, the water is running much faster because it looks like there's a downfall in that particular river. It's not. It's just a tiny bit starts going down with the water. It's just pulling you,
Right.
and then everybody gets into the boats, so you don't get scraped up. One time I did do it. I put the life jackets underneath me, and I used the life jackets as kind of so I don't get scraped up. And I did go where the current was going very fast, and it was really nice. But I had to be on really alert, being conscientious of any stones that were sticking up, so so you don't get scraped up. And that was actually very nice. It's like overcoming something.
Okay, good. So I'm going to stop you there. I wanted to get a sense that everybody has some sense of a river. And I just want you to close your eyes for a minute. And we're going to just visit in your mind visually that experience of being in a river. And maybe, whether you're in the river or you're looking at the river. And the first part of the river that we want to feel is that current that is strongest in the middle of the river. And that's going to be what we call the inner current. And then just feel the river widening to, so that's the depth of the river. Like the river, first of all, is deep, and that's where the current is going to be strong. So first of all, you have the depth of the river. If it's a shallow river, there's not much to talk about. But if there's a deep river, you feel all of that water, the depth of the river. And then sense or look at the width of the river, how it's wide, going to the sides, the banks of the river. And then lastly, we just feel the length of the river, how long it is. You're traveling on this river and it's moving, the water is taking you, far away from the place where you started. If you're on a boat or you're swimming, you're moving with the current. And that's the length of the river. Traveling far. So there's the depth, there's the width, and there's the length of the river. And now we're going to do something that's maybe a little bit, you have to use your imagination, because up until now you're going with the flow of the river. But now I want you to imagine that you need to, for whatever reason, you need to go upstream against the current, whether you're swimming upstream or, you're on the edges and you're walking upstream back to the source. And just imagine what that would feel like, pushing against the flow of the water.
Hard work.
Hard work, yeah. All right. Okay, so that's just to get our minds into this experience of a river. And one of the things about a river is it's constantly flowing. And that's really like our thoughts. Our thoughts are constantly flowing. If we think about when is the first river mentioned in the Torah, it's the river that comes out of Eden to water the garden. And this is just an aside, not to confuse anybody, but the Rebbe Rashab speaks about how Eden is Chochmah and Gan Eden is Bina. So you have this river that's flowing from Chochmah to Bina. And here we talk about the river as being, Bina. So let's have a look. Mila's going to take us into the text. Now that we've visualized the river, let's go back into more left brain where we're just dealing with the words and the concepts. And then we're going to try and put the two things together. Mila,
Yeah, I'm muted. I realized. Yeah, that's the most amazing thing is to really see how we really as we're doing the Hisbodedus process, we are pretty much going against that that inner current of our own thoughts and everything what's coming at us. So to be aware of that resistance is definitely a good thing. And we're going to go into the text right now. I'm going to share my screen. This will definitely help us to refresh what we have learned previously and give us a certain sense of direction. Okay.
Can you make it a bit bigger? Yeah.
That's pretty much on the biggest by me. This is the
Okay.
biggest, I guess I can do.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Okay, great. So you and Gimel Bechinas de Bina for now, and we will understand the three aspects of Bina, which was mentioned above, Mashal Gashmi, from the physical Mashal, the Nahar of the river. Hanimshal Mina Ma'ayan, which is being drawn down from the wellspring, from the Ma'ayan. Ki Bina Nikras Nahar, because Bina is called a river. V'nimshach Mina Chochma, and it is drawn down from the Chochma, Nikra Ma'ayan, which is called wellspring, Kayadua, as it known. V'yesh ba'omek, shehu ikar hiluchoy mimakoyrei. And the river has, Nahar has depth to it, which is the main flow from its source. This is how we defined what it is. Shehu miruta samayim. This is the flow of the water. Hanikra shtroim, right, which is called a current or flow. Shesham melubash koach tokif nevias ha'ma'ayan. That there is being enclosed the power of the revelation of the Ma'ayan. Okay, and this is what the omek is. The omek of the river is that inner current, this inner flow that is connected to the source, which is Ma'ayan. Okay, v'harochav, and the width, u'mashe mitrachev lekol tzad. This is something that is being expanded to all the sides of the river. Okay, samuch l'makora, which is closer to the source. Right, meaning it's expanding, but it's still closer to the source. There's this width of the river. V'ha'orech, and the length, this is something which is being traveled far away from its source. Okay, if you see over here, right, the very subtle what he's saying, that the width, it's closer to the source, and the length is further from the source. Okay. And through this, what could enjoy it also the people who are further away, from the place of the wellspring, the first revelation of the wellspring. Somebody who is much further down could still enjoy the water. The same way is, now we're going back to the Nimshal. The same way is in the aspect of the explanations of the Bina. Haniglas bebchinas yesh, which is revealed in the aspect of yesh. Shu levush nivdal mi'atzem haskala, which is a separate garment from the essence of the haskala. Umalbish le'etzem haskala, and encloses the essence of the haskala. Okay, v'nimshal lenahar canal, and the nimshal for the river, which was discussed above, right? Hina ha'omek sheba hu b'chinas ha'ayin de bina. The depth that's in it is the aspect of the ayin of the bina that's in it, sheba. Sheba melubash toikev koach ha'nevias ha'mayan. That in it is being enclosed the power, the strength of the power of the revelation of the Ma'ayan, right? That inner current, okay? The Nekuda of the Chachma, and what that inner current is about. It's inner current of the Nekuda of the Chachma, which basically what he's saying is something very profound, that in that river, there's always connection to the Ma'ayan. There's always that Ma'ayan is flowing, which is what that point. Okay. And that because it's the point of the Ma'ayan is being flown into the river, therefore it has vitality. There is, as Tippy mentioned, this inner current has a strength, and the water actually runs much faster than above and to the sides. Okay, now v'harochav Hu etzem zvarat. And now what's the Rachab? The Rachab is the essence of the explanation, kmo shehu b'moichai, like he is in his own brain. How he explains it to himself. Okay, bilti orach klal, without any length, because we don't at length explain to ourselves. When we get it and we hold it in our brain, the explanation of the concept, not the vision of the concept, the explanation of the concept, that's the Rachab already. For us, the Rachab is for us the way how we relate to the concept. Because we didn't enclose that yet in the Mashalim. Normal people, they don't explain themselves in Mashalim. They explain to others in Mashalim. But to themselves, it's clear. Okay, v'gam shenitchalka l'zvaris pratiyos, right? And it did, and even though it's already separated into different explanations, hakol hu be'etzem azvara, bilti levush nivdal. Although I for myself organized it, the concept, it's still bilti levush. I did not enclose it into any levush. It's still considered to be rachab. Rak shenitrachev, only, I organized it. It's still my width. But orech is the power to bring it down. And we bring it down for others. Okay, it is Yerida Shalazvara, Yerida of the Hasvara, Berichuk Makom, right? Something which is further down, I'm bringing it there, right? Nimakoira from its source. Shehu b'mashalim shanim. These are the different mashalim. Okay, these are the different mashalim. Until it will be understood even for a little child. And it's enough. Right? So from this we learn that the omek is the essence. Pretty much the omek of Bina is the Chachma. That's the inner current. This is the Ma'ayan flowing in the river. The Rachaf is how we understand the concept. Okay? And the Orech is how we explain to others. Yeah? We could just simplify it in these 3 stages. The same way how the river has its inner current, then closer to the current, the width, and the length, it's for others to enjoy the wellspring. So we will notice that when we learn, we go through these stages, especially something that we understood, right? We are learning. In the learning process, we are in a state of ayin. The minute we received it, right? There is our language, how we explain to ourselves the thing. And then when we try to bring it to others. So these are the 3 stages. Okay? We don't talk within ourselves in the orech way. Not at all. When we learn and we understand concept, it's still considered to be the width because we are using the understandings of ourselves and of whatever else we're learning, and that's the rachab that we have. Now, the orech is when we are trying to lower down or expand beyond ourselves and trying to explain it to somebody else. And that will require an effort, right? And we know that yichud, that orech, depends on omek. Remember? Practically, if the river doesn't have a strong inner current, it's not going to get that far. It's the inner current that pushes the river further. If it's shallow and weak, the river probably is going to dry out in a couple of kilometers. That's it. There's no flow. The stronger the inner flow, the further the river could bring the water. So the same thing is here. The more we understood it ourselves in a powerful way, the more we had that bittul to receive it, the more we're able to carry it over to others. Okay. Any thoughts, any reflections? Oh, I see our Chevra coming up.
I find the Orech image or Ikar very easy to understand. I don't relate so much with the with being connected more to the source. Maybe it's just a definition.
Yeah, it's just the way we understand it. I'll tell you what it is. Most of us, this knowledge kind of came to me when I was doing my birthing classes, right? It's a little bit unrelated to this, right? You'll be like, what's the connection? But I noticed that we really don't know ourselves. As a simple meditation that is very essential in a birthing process is that we actually feel how different organs feel. All of a sudden, you become aware of your body. And I'm telling you, 100% of women who I coach through, they were oblivious how they feel within the body. It seems that we, in our consciousness, constantly live outside of ourselves, right? To really bring ourselves into right here, right now, with all our senses and experience life from within. I'm telling you, I never had this. Never a woman came in and she said, I know exactly how I feel at this given moment. She had to like close her eyes, put herself together, feel. And some women didn't even know. So one of the tricks that I did is that I would give them an assignment and wouldn't tell them what the sensation would be. But truly the sensation is that the body responds with a tingling, with a flow of blood into that area. When we are consciously thinking, you could try it. Yeah. And what's the thing? Why am I answering Cuddy with this? Is that when I say that the way how we understand the concept, I'm speaking Chinese because people are not aware how they understand the concept. That's why it's hard for us to understand how we understand the concept because we're not even aware of that. We usually know how we receive and how we give over because the minute I receive, I'm ready already to tell it to somebody else. But we forget that there is this process of internalizations that we're not even aware of it. It's like we don't pause on that and really dwell on how we, with our psyche, with our consciousness, understand this. Without even wanting to give it anywhere. Not that it's something wrong to give it, but we kind of become like this machine, I hear one thing, I right away go and tell somebody else. Oh, did you hear? But what does this mean for me? Not that many people actually pause and reflect. Unless you are, what do you call this? The guys who, I forgot. There are those who get power from others, and there are those that there's a beautiful book called Quiet Revolution. Introverts, right? Unless you are an introvert, you probably have no idea what's flying there. If you're an extrovert, forget it, right? People who are extroverts are not really so much aware of what's the inner processes, what's happening with them inside. The introverts, they always fight. They're like, why should I, talk to others? I'm so comfortable with this depth that I'm dealing with. Yeah, but there's actually a beautiful book that's written. It's called, I'm not sure by who it's written, but it's called Quiet. Just the book called Quiet. And it talks about this research about what extrovert society does to the quiet guys. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Okay.
The subtitle is Being an Introvert in a World That Can't Stop Talking.
Exactly. Yeah, that book. Exactly.
And it's Susan Cain.
Isn't it?
Another book called Bittersweet, but anyway.
Isn't that also part of society? I'm sure there's societies that do bring out the inner feeling. It's very social, you know, and in certain families, I'm sure that's brought out more. In other families, it's more about being out and expressing yourself outwardly.
Yeah, and when we're becoming more shallow because of that, especially if you're an introvert, it's just like at one point you just be quiet and be this thought process. If you're an extrovert, that's gesund, hey, that's your nature, you know. But if you're an introvert and you're being forced to be an extrovert, that's where, you know, this quiet revolution is coming in. They're like, okay, leave them alone. They'll do much better.
I
They'll
think
be
you
more-
have to be a good introvert in order to be a good extrovert.
That's great, Cody. Yeah.
Yes.
But I think, Mila, what you're also describing is the eon process of just sitting with your thoughts for a long time and expanding them and listening to your own inner voice. And I'm not talking about so much the introvert extrovert process here, but it's more in this learning process of stopping once you've learned something and stopping and just thinking about it. And then you'll discover your rochav, because you'll make other connections and you'll expand it in your mind. And very often here, I think Nechama was saying, like, how is, you know, we having to teach this? So in a way, the class becomes our orech, that we're having to give it over. And in order to do that, you actually have to sit and think about it and see what your rochav is. In other words, you have to teach it to yourself first and see what it means to you before you give it over. And as Mila was saying, very often we go very quickly between getting the idea and giving it over, and don't process it that much. So, yeah.
Also,
And
Mila,
I also share when you have a chance. I'm here waiting. Okay, go ahead, Sippy.
so when Mila was describing the rochav, the picture that came to my mind is when a place was discovered, the first thing that people started building homes was usually on the banks of the river. And that's where cities started, and that's where they would get their essence, their livelihood. When they were planting, it was always on the banks of the river. And then as society started, they would go to the length of the river. So it's almost like the essence and the knowledge of the river kind of built a city, built humanity.
Yeah, that's a nice rochav right there.
Can I share something now?
Sure.
So I have really very interesting, but I have I didn't even know if I should share now, wait for the end, but when you were asking for I joined late, you're asking for Captain Middle, when you're asking for a visualization of current, the thing that came up for me is a story that my son told lately about somebody, and I thought everybody would just be very happy to hear this amazing story. And it also, when I applied it to this piece over here, it kind of added a whole oimek because it brought the Rebbe in to my current. So if you're ready for it. So I just want to tell also the hashgacha pratis of how the story unfolded in my life, because everything I feel adds another oimek to it. So I have a girl living in my basement. She's from Rio. And my son came in because the curve of his was getting married. And the whole time, every time the girl wanted to come, it was never the right time. She wanted to come with the other girls. And it was always like I had bacher and what. Finally, she showed up at a mill, and my son is there at the mill. And of course, he lives in Brazil in a different city called Curitiba. And this girl is there. So I'm saying, I'm telling he speaks already Portuguese and he's a shaliach. So he says, oh, Rosenberg, Rio, can I tell a story about your father. And here are these two people. I think I'm just introducing them. She says, go ahead. She knew already which story. He starts telling the story, but she took it up. Her father was completely not from, and he was a good swimmer. And so he took up a challenge. He's going to swim across this, whatever it was. I don't know the name of it. And in the middle, there was a current. And even though he was a good swimmer, there was a current that he didn't expect. There was a very strong current. And he had a hard time keeping up against the current. And he was actually getting tired out. And he felt, then he found a piece of wood and he held on to the wood. And still, then he lost the wood. And then he felt, that's it. He's saying goodbye to the world. Kamanu, he's finished. And suddenly, an image of somebody comes to him and says to him, 3 more strokes. Just, you could do 3 more strokes. And he figures 3 more strokes I could do. And so he shored up the kayak, did 3 more strokes, and suddenly he was at a bank. He was far from a bank. Suddenly he's at a bank and his life was saved. So, okay, he recovers and everything. Now, I don't know how much time elapsed. I still have to ask her. And then one time he's coming to somebody's house and he opens they open the door to the house, and right in front of him, there's a picture of the Rebbe. Right at the doorway, as soon as he saw that picture, he simply fainted. And the guy, like, what did I do to you that you're fainting at my doorstep? And he revives. And then he revives. Then he starts to say, that's the man, that's the man, that's the man who saved his life. So it's a crazy story. He's a totally from man. He's a Chassidus doctor living in Rio, has a lovely, lovely Chassidus, warm, lovely daughter and a whole family. And Rebbe came into him in the depth of this current where he was so challenged. And I just want to take this into my life, that I just want to do this visualization that I was just before trying to experience current using the story of how a man is struggling in the current. And I can use it in my life to say, in my deepest current, and because you also broadened it and you offered me the opportunity by using it in the Mashal, in the deepest current, I have resistance. When I have resistance, there's the Rebbe. Tell me 3 more strokes.
It's beautiful. Wow.
It's a beautiful story. And now I just want to thank you for what you shared before about the introvert extrovert. That is astounding. I love that. And I want to say, Mila, you know, Chana Karetni, she told me lately, she tells me I'm always using my brain. I'm a little bit in the struggle here. She tells me I only use my brain. Everything's my brain, my brain, my brain. I don't use the rest of me. I can't sense anything because everything is my brain. Here I'm coming to this class and we're going to do Meichen. And then she came up with this powerful statement. Not I have the knowledge, I am the knowledge. And when I say these words, I am the knowledge, my body has so much tingling. It's like I'm downloading from my brain, or like I'm making the connections, the electric charge. And as long as I go into that place, I am the knowledge. She just said this maybe 2 weeks ago to me. I have tingling in my whole body, with this downloading tingling in my body.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, because that's exactly what it is. It's when we focus, it's basically what Baal Shem Tov said, right? As of Imoy, right? Because we have a tendency to abandon the body and go and do what we need to do. You know, why dealing with the body, right? And you know, the Baal Shem Tov, we could say, you know, he's the father of somatic experiences, that after 300 years the world catched up. Right, so we could definitely see you know, you give 100%, right? The whole world is in a somatic experience, and that's what it is, because this is the ikar. The ikar is that the body becomes the keli for, you know, the essence. It is the keli. It just needs to really receive it, because the body is receiving, is the malchus, is the receiving thing, and for malchus to be fully revealing the essence, it needs to receive.
Okay, and now thank you, and how are you going to reconcile this kind of question that I posed here? That there she's telling me that everything I'm working with brain, like in other words, I have to drop my brain, and here I'm going to avodah sameichin.
Very simply, because avodah sameichin is not intellectual avodah. It's the work of the mind. And the mind is a tool.
Well, she's talking about when she said, oh,
When she
she's
means,
telling me
she
that I'm
could
using
also
too much
align.
brain. She means that mind. That's not moichen.
No. She means intellect.
I'm not.
Yeah. No Chana for over 25 years. I know
I
exactly.
figured you'll have
Yeah.
an inside scoop over here. Yes.
She's talking about specifically being intellectual. And intellectual, that's where we, become delusional and we abandon the body. Mind and body are virtually one. There's no separation because intellect gives us a sense of separation. But mind, heart, and body, they're all aligned and they're in constant communication.
Mila, this is what I think. I think that she's speaking about the subjective mind, which is deluded by all the, I mean, it's not, I'm saying the ego, it's all the parts of a functional self in Golus, and our Nefesh Abamis, and all of that. And here in the Veda Samechin, you're offering us something pure, objective, not being swayed by all the other things, but going into a place of pure objectivity.
Beautiful. And yet somebody could still take this knowledge and become an intellectual. This is different. Avodas Hamoichin actually is his boinanos process. His boinanos process is looking into pnimius of Bina. Pnimius of Bina is the Chochma. The Chochma brings us to Koach HaMaskil. Koach HaMaskil brings us to our Ratzon. Our Ratzon brings us to our Oneg. We're basically going through this, the narrowness of a bottle, and we are opening a whole new, different, godly experience.
So basically what you're telling me now.
This is what Avodas Hamoichin is.
So what you're telling me now is how I'm visualizing this is I'm using either one, whatever you want to call it, mind or intellect or anything, to go down. And what we're learning here is to go up.
But it's both. The chapter 2 is going to hang up there, right? Okay. Right now, freezing, and we are learning all the steps going up, right? But simultaneously, the light of Hashem travels in two directions at the same time. It's literally like a mirror. The higher you go, the lower it gets down, like that. It's not this and then that. It's like that.
Right. True. Very good. Very good. Excellent.
So the deeper we go into the concept, the lower it reflects in our heart. And that's what the Rebbe ultimately saying in the Avodas Hamoichin Sicha is that don't worry about your midas. Right now, the pathway is clear. You could go up and that will reflect down. It's impossible not to reflect.
Mila, the root is up, but the translation, that was the word I was going to use before, the effect or whatever, I lost the word I had, is down.
And deep is the same thing. Going up and going deeper is the same thing. It just, we use that, going up and down, but versus is deeper and more outward.
Right, but I meant something else here. I meant, when you say what's higher comes down lower. That's what I meant. I meant that part. That as we go to the root of things, the real where it's displayed is in the mata of mata.
Exactly. And this is what the Rebbe's his whole thing, because that's how Malchus comes down. The whole idea of Malchus, right? It's in a very special Sephira, and we are Malchus. This is our domain. This is what we feel. It's generationally. This is what was left for us to inherit in a way, right? It's Dor Hashvi, right? It's the 7th generation, and this is this is our chelik. Our chelik is the Malchus. And what is Malchus? Malchus is the lowest of low. We have no doubts about that, right? What we've been experiencing, it's quite interesting, and yet it's a perfect keli for the highest of high.
It's the experience of the highest of high, really.
Exactly, but it has both. It has stages of development. There are 11 stages of Malchus.
Okay.
B'ezrat Hashem, this is what the whole Shar Yichud is. The later chapters of Shar Yichud is exactly explaining this whole binyan of Malchus. Because this is in Seder Hishtalshelus. Yeah.
It can be a little bit abstract when we're trying to describe these things because what is intellect, what is mind. But I think that Reb Hillel, with these Mashalim, is also trying to break that intellectual coldness in a way. Because if you live the Mashal in a kind of like, in a way, I was trying to do at the beginning of the class, not everybody was here, where you really experience the river visually, almost like for the people who were here, they were talking about it. You feel the river, and then you put it together with the intellectual concept. It's no longer something that's just intellectual. It's really combining different parts of our mind to make it alive. So it's in the process that you discover a different experience of mind, and it's not cold intellect. You can
I
learn.
think who said that he that Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe with Chabad, made Tchias HaMesim. Who was it? It's one of the Chassidim said that. Yeah, that the coldness of the mind to ignite with godliness and have the hispailos in the mind is what Tchias HaMesim is.
Right. But in a way, it requires going against the current. That's when you really start to use your mind. When you're just going with the flow of the river, okay, it says this, it does that. Well, now I understand it. Move, yalla, next. But when you really sit in, like work with it, then it exercises your brain in a different way. Okay. What we're going to do now is go into breakout rooms, because this was okay. It's a bit of an intellectual process, but it's just to see it clearly. This is the worksheet. There's a link to it in the WhatsApp group and also on the chat, where I want you to put these side by side, the Mashal and the Nimshal. The depth of the river, what is that? How you understand it, and how that is similar to the Omek. What's the connection between these two? The width of the river and the Orech of Bina. The length of the river and the Orech of Bina. And this is what we're going to be, that's what we want you to, okay, that's what we want you to look at. Chama's asking, are you going to talk more about going against the current? Really going against the current is what we learn a little bit later, which is that the Eon process, which starts with the Orech of Bina and goes upwards, that's really kind of going against the current. And we'll talk about that in the coming classes, where right now we're going more or less from up down, which is from the perspective of the mashpia giving over to the makabel, and later we're going to go more against the current. So does everybody get this? What we need to do in the breakout room? It's really just to go back and forth and try and visualize it. What is the inner current in the river, and how is that similar to the Omek of Bina? And go back and forth between the image of the river and the concept of Bina, and see what comes up for you, what questions you have. And Mila's going to put us into there. 9 people.
Yeah, I'm putting you're opening the rooms, so you should get the invite. And good luck. Yeah, Tzipi, were you able to get it, Sarah?
I don't have it. What I got is a double picture of you. Like I have the regular and then it's like double. I don't, yeah, you didn't send me a link. You could have sent me, but it's what's coming.
Yeah. Sarah, is that the same for you? Yeah, Sarah, were you able to get it? Tzipi, you got it? You got the invite?
No, I'm still seeing a W.
Oh, really? That's so strange. Can you check now?
Yeah, I mean, unless I close you, let me see. Yes, when I close the other one, it just, okay.
You're good? You're joining?
Sarah, are you there? Oh, there she went. Okay. Oh, let me stop the recording.
Beautiful. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Okay. So first of all, I want to know, did anybody do the worksheet in the breakout room? Alkalea, you saying yes?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you did. Okay. So let's go have a look and compare notes. Let's see what maybe the best way to do this is to write in the chat.
Yep, I think that's a great idea.
But for some reason, while I'm sharing, I don't see the chat. Okay, so I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to stop sharing there. Let's just go with the chat. So let's start with the Mashal of the river. So what did you write? What is the depth of the river? What do you know about the depth of the river? And everybody's writing in the chat. This is the way we're going to do it so that we give everybody a chance. Just, you know, if you were writing it or if you were discussing it. Nechama says it's the essence. The depth of the river is the essence. We're talking about the Mashal. We're talking about the river itself. Okay, Giti says the strength of the current. Okay. What else do we have? Cody, you're saying the source. Well, the source, the depth is connected to the source. The source is the Mayan. Okay. Mila, you can read the Hebrew because I think she wrote something not quite a little bit. You want to read that? Ikar Hayeluchu Otzemet Hazrima. Okay, connection to the spring. Okay. The essential flow.
Atzma means the strength. The strength of the current, just in Hebrew.
Oh, Hazrima.
Atzma is koach, is strength.
Right. Okay, so we basically we understand the river. So it's the flow of the water from its source, and it's the current. And that's where you get the strength, the flow of it carries the strength of the flow of the spring. You feel Okay, you feel the strength of it. So now in the Nimshal, what is the Omek? What is the depth of Bina? And how is that similar? How can we understand, how does this Mashal help us to understand Bina, which is abstract? Scipio, you're saying the shturim of the Hitzbonenot, like the current of the Hitzbonenot? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Can you explain?
I think that's what we have been learning is the more we're misboinant, the more we're putting kaichas into it and staying with it, the more we're going to go into the depth and the ayin.
Whoa, where are you up to? I stepped away.
We're looking at the Omek of Bina.
Okay.
How it's similar to the depth of the river.
What was said so far?
So you can write in the chat, Giti.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so Nechama says, we're talking about the Omek of Bina. It envelops and carries us in an experiential rather than an intellectual way, being in flow. Okay. So look, essentially the Omek is the ayin of Bina that encloses the strength of the flow of the spring, which is the Nakuda of Chochmah. And it has a lot of chayot in it. So that's the connection between this inner current of the depth of the river and the fact that Bina is connecting to the inner current, as it were, of Chochmah. It's taking the main strength of the Chochmah and that becomes the current that creates a strong river. Because it's just like we said in the river, that it's connected to the Maayan. So we're saying in Bina, that Bina is connected to the Chochmah, the inner point of Chochmah. That's the connection to the Maayan. So all the things that you're saying are correct, but just to be like to connect the two directly is to try and understand like what is the inner current and what does that have to do with the Omek of Bina. It's the strength that it gets from being connected to the Nakuda of Chochmah, which is the spring. Okay, Cody, how do we make the connection the strongest? I'm not sure what you're asking, Cody.
When you're talking about connection, that's already das, no?
So I'm not sure what the question is. You're asking, I guess you're asking, how do you make sure that the Chochmah is driving the Bina? That's right. Okay, that's what we're learning. You know, that's the process that we're learning. Okay, so now let's go.
But there are Frad between Chochmah and Bina, there's Das, Elia in there. But we're not going there yet because we're knowing it from a later paragraphs, right? So we're going back to the first paragraph, and obviously Rabbi Hillel doesn't want to overwhelm us with too much details. He still gives us a mashal of Omek, Rochab, and Orech, and then goes back and says, okay, now I'm going to give you a mashal. He definitely is not interested to overwhelm us with yet another das there and all that. He's gonna do that later. Because remember, when we teach, we first give a klal, and then fill in the details. We give a klal and then fill in the details. Because klal, the general idea, gives us an understanding what is this about. So then we could, it's like a keli for the details to be inside and not just floating around. Okay, but then he's gonna, expand each part. Now, for example, when we're learning about the body, yeah, we're not gonna be talking about every single bone there yet. We're gonna say, okay, kids, we have a body. What's a body? It's a head and a finger and, the hands and the shoulders and knees. Okay, you got it? Okay, once they got it, then, okay, now each hand has from 3 parts. And we're gonna go into more details of a hand. And then fingers, and then the bones of the fingers. So it's like, from an introduction, it would be ridiculous for us to say, okay, there are 15 bones. And the kid has no idea where the bones are, right? So the same story, what's happening with Reb Hillel. He's giving us a klalistic statement in the beginning, and then gonna zoom into details, and then more details, and more details.
And in fact, next week we learn about das, Tzipi. So then you'll see that wherever there's an omek, there's going to be das. All right. So now let's move on to the width of the river. And what do we know literally about the width of the river? Can write in the chat. What is the quality of the width of the river? It's quite simple. Don't overthink it. What is the width of a river? Somebody should be writing.
Do you mind, I have my son's coming in here, but can you tell me again what we're doing?
We're doing the worksheet.
What are you writing now?
I'm asking what is the width of the river?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Just literally. What is
Okay.
the width of the river? It's just it's very simple. Okay. Really, what I want to ask you, okay. So I'm asking about the literal river. Al-Khaleh, you're giving me the nimshal. I'm asking for the mashal. First of all, just what is it in a river? Okay, Nechama, the distance from one side to the other. And it can have various depths. Good. It's literally the width. How it goes out to the sides, how it spreads out to the banks of the river. Right, we're talking about the width of the river. Okay. The way that it's described, in the text is the way it spreads out to the sides in proximity to its source. And we had a question about that. I actually feel like what it means in proximity, like close to its source, meaning that the source is, in this case, is kind of the omek, the current. The stronger the current, the more it will go out to the sides, the broader the river will be, depending on the strength of the river. So if it's a shallow river, it's not going to be very wide. If it's a deep river, which we know is carrying the strength of the Mayan, then it's going to be able to spread out and be a wider river. Okay, now what is that in the Nimshal? What is the rochav of Bina?
Bina of Bina.
Okay, but just describe it relative to the Mashal. So Al-Khaleh, you had written it, but a little bit earlier, where you said the explanations without Mashalim. Okay, so what is what is the width of Bina? Okay, Nechama, how we explain concepts to ourselves. Good. Understanding the concept and details inside of us. Yehudis. Okay. Okay, so we're getting that the Rochav is the explanation as it is in the person's mind, but it's not yet enclosed in different mashalim and in different explanations. It's kind of how we explain it to ourselves. You don't need to explain it to somebody else yet.
We had a question if when talking about modern details, the implications, but it's still in ourselves. Is it already Orech or it's still Rochav? It's still details?
Even if you can make other connections and you can have
Yes.
you expand on the explanation. It's not just that you only understand the explanation as it is, but it's still how you're understanding it for yourself.
Okay.
The Orech is going to be where, for example, if I really had Orech, I would give you a different mashal for Bina. I wouldn't say it's a river. I would say it's something else. I would understand it so deeply that I would be able to give you another mashal.
It has to be a mashal, or just, let's say, saying the concept in different wording.
Yes.
You're saying it to somebody else. So it's not a mashal, it's just different wording, I would say.
Yes. So he says in the text, different explanations and different mashalim. And he says it specifically. Yeah. Okay. So
is it okay if I say, I'm sorry. Could I say something? Is it okay?
If it's on topic, sure.
Yeah, 100%. My son owns a campsite upstate, and what we see every year is that the river eats up more and more of the land. So the width of the river is how we define when we see it is how much it's eating up the dry land, and every year it's eating up more and making that stuff that used to belong to our property part of itself. I'm just saying that's what we live with there. The width of the river is how much it ate up the dry land and took it as part of itself. Just say whatever that is in Bina, that's it's a big thing in our life.
Yes, how much it swallows our brain.
Or how much Bina, how much it swallows up understanding of the world and of truth. How wide the Bina is how much it swallows up more and more stuff and makes it part of itself. I think, I'm just saying, we live with this. What?
It's beautiful. It's so interesting. I'm into neurographics, right? In neurographics, it's a whole concept of, it's like trajectory of your thoughts, right? A certain pattern, right? These synaptic connections are much stronger in things that became habitual, right? So now when you create a new pattern of thought, right? But that's in neurographics that you created through drawing, because this is hand-eye, and coordination. That through drawing is that whatever the new thoughts that you want to have, you actually have to say them and draw them over the same line over and over, and it actually becomes wider. The whole idea of it is that it has to be wide and more comfortable enough that your riverbed is wide, and that's where the flow is in. If you're drawing this little teensy line, it has a different flow of energy. But yeah, the width, it's what determines it's like how much ground it captures. Thank you, Sarto, but that's exactly what it is. It's like how much ground, how much of your brain it occupies that thought. That's
it's
where
like
the energy.
creating highways for more mobility.
Exactly. And when our worldly activities occupy so much that it became so habituated, the question is, what will happen when we're going to habituate our hisbodedus process? Just think about it, right? That's what the Geula is. Geula is that when we habituate awareness of God to such an extent that it becomes even more. Why? Because the worldly things, it's an addition to our essence. Because if our essence is the awareness of God fully, milvado, this is what our true self is. Can you imagine how powerful this whole experience will be? It's more than creating a second habit. It's the original habit.
Okay, so let's go to the length. The length is probably the easiest. What is the length of the river? What happens? What is the function of the length of the river? Writing in the chat, please. Okay. So it.
Oh, no.
So Nechama, you giving us the Mashal
Yeah.
there. I just want, like, it's important to go back to the Mashal, to put the two together. It's really going back and forth between your right and left brain. It's, that's part of what he's trying to do for us. So that's what I'm trying to help you to do is, what is the river? What is the length of the river? Okay, Nechama. Okay, Cody says transmission. I'm not going to say that. Transmission. Okay, then Nechama says the length of the river, where it goes furthest from its source. That's in the Mashal. Okay. And nobody else could say that? The length of the river? Okay, Yehuda's giving life to those who are far from the source. Okay, the water travels far from its source. Okay, and then the Nimshal, Bina. What is the orech? What is the length of Bina? So then Nechama, you wrote that, relating the idea to someone else on their own level so they can understand it. Okay, so you're bringing it down. River's destination. Yes. Cody, the river joining the wider water. I don't know what that means really. What is Bina? How does this manifest in the Nimshal, the Orech, the length of Bina? How is it like the river taking water far from the source of so Yehuda says, explaining and teaching the idea to others in using a mashal. Okay. All right. Good.
I'm thinking, I'm sorry, I tuned in just now again, I missed everything, but I'm thinking, I heard your question. I'm thinking as, let's say, traveling down the Hudson River, as you perceive the length of the river, you always see new vistas, and new vistas are new inspirations.
Good. Yeah, you see, you build on what the Mashal has to offer. But the point of this exercise really is to that part of what Reb Hillel is trying to help us to do is to go back and forth between the visualization of the image, which is the river, the thing that we know in the physical world, and Bina, which is something abstract, which we don't really know what it is. And when you go back and forth between the two, in your mind, from the image of the river, from the experience of the river, the feel of the river, all of these things, then you apply it to Bina. It might not match up exactly, but he's giving us guidance how to match the two up. And that process of going back and forth between an image and an idea, really builds builds something between our two brains, which is very much part of this Hitzbonenut process. And many months ago, somebody asked me, like, the workshop that I created based off of some of the inspiration from learning Shara Yichud, a large part of it was just understanding how he was working with our brain, which was to take an image and then to take a concept and go back and forth between the two. It's a very, very powerful teaching method where you're not just talking words, but you're using images in our minds, in our experience. And when you put the two together, then you get a real understanding. Just like Gitti came up now, it's like an aha. Oh, as you go down the river, you see new vistas. You know, when you go on the Orech of Bina, you're getting new explanations. You see it in a new way. You can enclose it in a mashal. Okay, so I really don't know how to like emphasize it more, but this is part of the Iyun process, is to sit with the mashal in your mind and go back and forth and try to understand what Bina is, because he's giving you this mashal for a reason. It's to broaden your understanding of Bina. And the more you understand them and know the mashal, the more you will be able to understand Bina. Okay.
Right. One of the things I think it's also very important, if you could create, up until now, we went through 7 paragraphs from the beginning. This is our, I think, 8th paragraph, right? So if you could create some sort of mind map on a piece of paper, and also, you know, if you could share it. There is a mind map that we did, that we did before. If you wanna, if you wanna use that, that's fine. I could share the, the link again, but that should be on your drive. And in general, like, please, if you could just sit and very objectively close your eyes and just envision the flow of concepts, the way it's being portrayed in the work that we do now, right? In the first chapter, up until this point, because we pretty much discussed a lot of concepts, and it's an amazing exercise if you'll just to see the flow of the river that Rabbi Hillel is presenting us, right? Just to see how did he start it, what happened next, what happened next. We will train our brain to follow a thought process of a tzaddik, and this is beautiful, because in that thought process, the more we go through that thought process, the more we will be able to adapt it into our everyday life. It's like, widening our river. Every time when we just take the scope of beginning and end, so to speak, we are creating that connections in our brain, and it's going to become easier and easier from a structural perspective. So we could do that, and after our class, I'll share the kugel, and you could use that and just write on your, on a piece of paper, whatever else you need, but it has to be very kitzur. So a symbolic representations, so then you know that it has all the orech in it and all the width in it. Yeah, just a symbolic representations that you yourself will be able to and explain it to whoever will be listening or explaining. Okay, so let's see who could prepare something like this till our next class for this 8 paragraph.
So Mila?
Basically,
would-
a summary, you know, a flow chart, a summary, or whatever.
Yeah,
No?
like a flow chart. Flow chart is better than a summary because you see, summary has a lot of words in it, right? Here you want to create a visual representations of the flow, right? Summary is very good for somebody who is left brainer, right? The flow chart is more for the right brain. So we need to alternate between a long story and make it a short to the point, right? To go over the points. And it's very helpful because then you're able to differentiate between essential things and may not necessarily so essential. Everything is essential, but then there is something which is called a kitzer, right? Like if you are to use 2 sentences, how would you describe this paragraph? And it's a good exercise to do because then all these letters, all of a sudden you're sifting through the essential letters. And that you'll see the difference between a Chachma and Bina very clearly there. Yes, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna actually could share it here, and I'm also gonna share it. Nechama asked if we're gonna give yeah, here we go. You could look at it. It doesn't have to be, you know, so colorful and all that. I was just doing it more for the class. But if you could just follow through, like, okay, this, then this, then this, then that. Why it's important? Because the whole goal of Mizbainan, Mittel Rebbe says in the chapter 10, later on, when the actual, what we should be Mizbainan on, talks about, is that we are able to Baskira Achas with one flow to go all the way up and come all the way down. And it has to be so, we're supposed to be very well versed in all these levels. So obviously we would have to prepare and prime our brain for these type of activities, yeah? Down, up. This is the concept. This is how it brings it down. This is the Mashal he gives. This is the. And if we're talking about long explanations, we'll never remember them unless we have some super talents. But if we create kitzer just for us to understand the code itself and the flow of the concept, right? Like, let me ask you, who remembers 3 first questions that were asked in the first paragraph?
I think I can.
Let's go. It's great.
Shema. Why the double nun for his bonanut? But that's not the first question.
That's right. What is his bainanus? Good.
And why the double nun?
Okay.
No, I forgot.
Okay, that was the third question about the double nuns.
No, it's 2 questions. What is the hisbonanus? Second question, why double nun? And the third one?
Why does it say Shema when we need to?
Why Chochma and not why Bina and not Chochma?
Amazing, great. Yes,
But-
that's
But
you
that
know,
was,
you like have a point of reference so fast. It's amazing. That means we've done the hisbonanus pretty much on the first paragraph, right? And because when we have that, if it would be like a whole bunch of words, you're not gonna sift through the ikar, right? It's like it's really training your mind to read and get the point, to read and get the point. And these points are written separately, and that's how you see the flow, right? Now he asks that second question, describes what, right? He says, okay, in order to understand that, we need to understand there are 3 parts of brain, Chochma and Bina. Amazing. The third paragraph, Das. It gives 3 identifications of Das, right? Which is fully focused, forgets about himself, forgets about time. So like that. Yeah, it helps us when we have the clarity to such an extent, and this is where the Chachma is. Chachma is that clarity, that the concept is so crystal clear for me that I could just close my eyes and just go through the thought process with clarity. Okay. Obviously, when I'm going to dive in again, I could bring new pearls out. But just for the sake of me and understanding to myself, I'm doing these, these exercises. So let's do that. Okay. If you could prepare.
And perhaps share them on the WhatsApp group.
Great.
What was that? What should we do on the WhatsApp group? Share?
Share your
The flow chart. I think we're ready for the flow chart. After the first one, we were not ready, but I think by now we're definitely ready for a flow chart, and I think it will benefit everybody. It's just kind of like, oh, what is that? Let me read through it and create a flow chart. And then we'll compare everybody else's flow charts. We're not gonna grade them. So don't worry about it.
Okay. So Mila, we can either stop here or we can do the beginning of that process. Should we try like a 10-minute meditation?
It's
Not
10 to 7. It's late.
late. Okay.
You can do a 3-minute one.
A 3-minute one. Okay, this is the meditation. It's not guided meditation. We've now finished Chochmah and Bina. That we finished learning about it. So I want you to just close your eyes, and it'll be just for a few minutes. Just go back and think for yourself, what do I know about Chochmah? What do I know about Bina? And we're just going to spend a few minutes, and you're just going to go into your mind and try and remember, like, what was that first paragraph that spoke about Chochmah is this, Bina is that, and now we've done the 3 parts. Just what do you know? What comes up for you? And which parts are missing for you? Okay, so close your eyes and just go into that space and ask, what do I know about Chochmah? What is Chochmah for me? And what is Bina for me? Okay, let's just get a little bit of feedback. Was that useful for you? Were you able to draw a picture in your mind of what you know and what you don't know?
I'll speak up if nobody else is.
Okay.
So in the beginning, I was a little stuck because I wasn't sure where am I, what am I using as my drawing board for this Chachma Bina experience? Am I using something I've learned and then thinking what I do further with it? Am I thinking of something that I'm being creative and thinking, coming up with my own project? And then I decided the best place is this whole course that we're doing here, this whole Limud and Shara Yichud, and how my original ideas of things were so seminal or non-existent or just like a little idea, and suddenly we're fanning it out into so much. So here I could do something with it. So tell me where I went, what was I saying, where I didn't know where to rest. It's like the dove is looking for a tree after the marble, like, where do I rest?
Look, I'm not really, maybe I didn't explain it so well. Maybe you took it into another direction, which is fine. It's however it is. What I was really asking you to do is to go back into the teachings that we have learned about Chochmah and Bina and just try and remember, what is he say is Chochmah and where does it come from? And, just remembering what we've learned. What have we learned about Chochmah? What have we learned about Bina? So perhaps I wasn't so clear about that. Like I see that you could have misunderstood that, but it's okay. It took you into another direction of thinking.
No, but I definitely took those ideas along, whatever I was doing. It was fun.
Yeah. So then you're making the connection between my experience and what I've learned. But here, what I'm suggesting, and if you didn't do it now, I suggest you do it at home, it's really like going through that flow chart in your head before writing it down. Like, oh, what is the essence of Chochmah based on what I've learned? What is the essence of Bina? Oh, where does the Chochmah come from? And then how does, what is the Oimek? What is the Rochav? What is the Orech? And then the Oimek and Rochav and Orech of Bina. So I just want to hear from anybody else. Were you doing that? Did it come up as something else for you?
I have a question. For me, it was hard. Once I identified the ideas, which I guess are intellectual of each, I couldn't stick with it for very long without translating it into something practical. So I thought of a project that I had in my mind that I wanted to do that maybe I haven't done, and where that would fit in. So it was hard, without plugging it into something practical, it was hard to just stay on those abstract concepts.
Okay, that's interesting. Part of the Eon process is to just stay with the process, to try and make sure that, it's like doing a summary for yourself. Do I remember what he said? Because now we're moving forward. Like, do I have the foundation? Do I know what, the process of Chochmah is? Do I know what the process of Bina is? Yes, you can bring it into your own experience, but an important part of the Eon is just to stay with the text and just to stay with what he is teaching us.
Because so what I found was that didn't take very long. Now maybe it should take longer, but
okay.
It was very quick.
It was very quick.
And I had to go back again and again because I found that my brain works very fast. And this is a different experience to slow the process.
Okay.
And I did find that I was looking for an idea to try to see if I know it, to see how it flows, and it was hard for me to find an example. As I tried to go back to the text, I went to the image of the spring and the whole process. I was trying to go back and forth, and it was a very new experience for me because I usually בכלל, the whole thing of התבוננות. I usually learn, like in school, we learn, we understand, we go weiter. And this is like an opportunity to go back and again, and maybe get connected to it more.
So this is exactly what is expected. This is the Eon process, is to go back over and over and over again until you really know it well. To the extent that you can then tell it to somebody else. If you can't explain it simply to somebody else, then it means you don't really know it yet.
Right. You know what? Not just till I know it, until I unite with it.
Right. First, you have to be able to teach it to yourself. So this is the process of literally closing your eyes and teaching it to yourself.
It's like, do I have to know what order are the features on my face? I know what's top, middle, bottom. I know what goes folds after my neck. It's like you want to have that intimate knowledge with it, that it's like inside.
Right, that you really know it. Someone can wake you up in the middle of the night and say to you, you know, like, what's the omek of Chochmah? And you'll know. Because, you know, because you've done the Eon.
So
Okay.
is the takeaway from this that we tend to jump too quickly to the action part, to the practical part, and we should just have to stay with the abstract understanding of the concepts?
Yeah, and yes, it's not even, but when you say abstract, I think it's not even so abstract. Why say that it's abstract?
Well, the river is not abstract, but that's really
Why can't it be experiential knowledge?
Well, the thing that let's not use the word abstract or experiential. Basically, what you're trying to do, first of all, you just want to understand what Reb Hillel is trying to teach you without bringing yourself into it too much. You can bring yourself in to try and understand it, but not to apply it because you don't understand it yet. So the point is to really sit with what he's telling you over and over and over again, so that you create those new synapses in your brain, and then the application will come naturally. You don't have to make it. You will see in your life, suddenly it applies itself. But if you don't create those new synapses based on Reb Hillel, then you're not going to learn anything new. You're just going to say, oh, I know what that is in my life. And you haven't learned from Reb Hillel. From the Rebbe, let's say he's the Rebbe at this point. You know, he is our Rebbe teaching us something. So Nechama, does that answer your question?
Yes.
I'm thinking about the Mashal, and because I've been on a river before, so I can get into that, and I can visualize myself what that's like. So really, the Mashal in visualizing in being in the Mashal, it is practical because I've done that before, so I know what it's like.
Yes. So that's a good example of, but that's what he's giving you, and he wants you to work with it. So when you go back and forth between the Mashal and the Nimshal, you're doing the work that he's giving you. But now if you start applying it in your mind, like you forget about the Mashal and the Nimshal, and you, rather than really doing Eon on that and understanding the concept, if you try and apply it too quickly, you're defeating the purpose of the Eon. So it's a delicate balance, but you know, try and really
it doesn't show that I'm talking to you.
try and figure out
10 seconds. And you know
where you know, how much you really doing Eon on what the teacher is giving you, as opposed to, you know, what you already know. Okay, so
I like
yeah.
to also one more idea that before Mila was saying how it goes back and forth between
I'm only checking.
And so the back and forth of the electricity and the way electricity works, it's constantly going back and forth between the source and whatever it's connected to, whether that's why we have two wires. If you ever taken apart any electrician, there's two wires that the electricity is going to whatever it is activating, and it's going back to the source and bringing you. So that was when you were saying about the back and forth, that there was the thing that kind of sprang up in my mind. And then I started thinking our breathing, the way the blood in our system is going, there's constantly this back and forth going to the source, and wherever it is has to supply to, and then going back to the source.
Beautiful, because it's truly like you illustrated an amazing mashal, because truly when we connect to the concept, it's not just one way. It's never one way. It's this circulation on a constant basis. Because if we think about it right now, exactly, Ratza Shub, it's on a constant basis. It's this, the more we want to bring down, the more we start connecting up. The more we're connecting up, the more we're able to bring it down. It's neither either or. But what ends up happening is that it's like, have you ever been into light theater? Light theater, no? The way it is that basically it's completely pitch dark, and all of a sudden you see hands sticking out as if there's no body. Okay. And then they do all kinds of and then you see like a face sticking out, and then you see face and a hand, but you don't see the whole body. Meaning where the light is at, that's what you will see. Okay, so, but that doesn't mean that you just see hands floating in the air, right? The knowledge of knowing there's a full body behind helps you to remain sane during this type of, presentations, right? So when we experiencing revelation of one thing, that doesn't mean that another thing doesn't exist simultaneously. Do you know what I mean? Because the light is just the revelation of it. But there is a full body there, and we all know there are probably another 20 people on the stage. But we just see one thing. We just see two hands, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not. There's so much going on inside there that.
So just to say, Tzipi, I think that you really got it. It sounds like you really got into the Hitbonenut process to the point that you could bring two Mashalim with that experience. You could have the orach, and there's a certain pleasure in there. Did you experience that? Like there's an oneg, nachon? Tzipi? You're muted, Tzipi, so we can't hear you.
Baruch Hashem, yes.
You felt that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what, now, when you do this process and you get that experience of pleasure, that should drive you to want to do it again.
And always write down your mashalim.
Yeah, you'll think that you remember
Barak
it.
Maverick. Barak goes all the way back, and then you might not find it again.
Yeah. It comes like a flash and you think, oh, I'll never forget this. And then you forget it quite quickly sometimes. But that's really what this experience, like the way Tzipi's describing it, is really where you want to try and go with the iyun, with the Hitbonenut. And then you'll come up with a real experience of pleasure. Okay, I think we've done enough for today, and maybe we'll try to do more of this iyun work in the class. But next week we'll be looking at Das, which is a whole story all on its own. Okay, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure having you.